Hello, my name is Blossoms and welcome to another Genshin Impact video. Today we're going to be showing off and going over the different talents and constellations of the pyro polearm user Xiangling. Xiangling was actually requested by one of you beautiful commenters below, Sergeant Satan, and I've had Xiangling for quite a long time because my actual first 10 pull in the game, I got 2 Xianglings. And then I went ahead and I got a third once I hit AR 20 and went to the Spiral Abyss. So you could say I have a pretty good idea of how Xiangling works, as she's been on my team since AR 5, and I'm currently AR 34. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the talents and constellations of the beautiful pyro polearm user Xiangling. For Xiangling's first talent here, we have her normal attack, Dofu, performs up to 5 consecutive spear strikes, and then her charge attack consumes a certain amount of stamina to lunge forward, dealing damage to enemies along the way. And then she has a typical plunge attack, nothing too crazy, and then these are the skill attributes surrounding her normal attack, and this is how they scale. And this is how her normal attack pattern looks, and her charge attack spears through. One thing to note about the charge attack is that it does indeed go through opponents. It's an excellent repositioning tool, and I actually use it quite often in a fight. And then for her charge attack, we'll go ahead and jump down here. Pretty cool. She becomes basically a human drill to the ground. But one thing to note is that Xiangling is currently the only polearm user in the game. There is Xiao, however, he is not currently available for wishes just yet, but I do think he'll probably be coming before too long. Now for Xiangling's second talents, we have Gyoba Attack. Summons Gyoba the Panda. Gyoba continuously breathes fire at the enemy, dealing AoE pyro damage. And then this is the skill attributes for those of you interested. One thing to note is that all of my attributes are currently leveled up quite a bit, so this is not exactly the base Xiangling, but I just wanted to go ahead and let you guys know. And then this is how they scale as they level up. And then this is how her first ability looks. One thing to note is that Gyoba here will remain on the field no matter who you switch to, and he will continuously breathe fire. Also, if the enemy is behind Gyoba and you accidentally placed him in the wrong direction, he will indeed turn around and breathe fire in that direction instead, so don't worry. For Xiangling's third talent here, we have Pyronado. Displaying her mastery over both fire and polearms, Xiangling sends a Pyronado whirling around her. The Pyronado will move with your character for so long as the ability persists, dealing pyro damage to all enemies in its path. And then the skill attributes for this are as follows, and one thing to note is that the duration here is actually pretty generous of 10 seconds. It sticks around for quite a while. And then for Xiangling's elemental burst here, Pyronado, this is how it looks. And one thing to note is that this also sticks around for its entire duration, and you can swap to any character during it, which is really excellent for comboing off while that's going. For Xiangling's fourth talent here, we have Crossfire. It increases the flame range of Gyoba by 20%, so that is something important to note when I was using Gyoba's attack there, that the spread was just a little bit longer than it should be because I have this talent. However, I wouldn't worry about it too much, it's still pretty generous. Moving on to her fifth talent here, we have Beware, it's super hot. When Gyoba's attack effect ends, Gyoba leaves a chili pepper on the spot where it disappeared. Picking up a chili pepper increases attack by 10% for 10 seconds. You can already start to see that Xiangling is an excellent DPS as well as an excellent tool for comboing off. And that is kind of going into what we're going to be showing in the how I think you should build her portion. And then for her final passive talent here, we have Chef de Cuisine. For those of you who don't know, Xiangling is actually a famous chef in the Liyue region, and when Xiangling cooks an attack boosting dish perfectly, she has a 12% chance to receive double the product. This is excellent if you're one of those people who do really care about the stat bonuses of the dishes. She is going to be able to yield you more of those dishes, which is just, you know, a nice little passive to have. Getting into the constellations here, you will notice that I do have 3, as I mentioned before. I got lucky with Xiangling, and I will be showing one of them off as it's a little bit easier to just see it in action. But before that, we have the first constellation here, being crispy outside, tender inside. Enemies hit by Gyoba's attacks have their pyro resistance reduced by 15% for 6 seconds. And since Gyoba has such a large AoE, you can imagine how this could be really strong. And kind of the reason that I've been putting Xiangling in a double pyro team, allowing me to switch to Bennett and use his pyro abilities that are just doing more damage because Gyoba lit somebody on fire. For her second constellation here, we have Oil Meets Fire. The last attack in a normal attack sequence applies the implode status onto an enemy for 2 seconds. An explosion will occur once this duration ends, dealing 75% of Xiangling's attack as AoE pyro damage. This is the one that I wanted to show off, as it is pretty cool just to see it in action and be aware that it's happening when you're using Xiangling. And then this is what that constellation looks like. One thing important to note is that it only applies that effect on the final part of the normal attack. You saw it went on there, and it does apply pyro, so you can combo it off and get that overload going. So 1, 2, and then the final one there should have applied it to him, and see, we got an overload proc right there. So yeah, Oil Meets Fire is an excellent constellation to have. Even if you don't have Xiangling's abilities up, you will still be applying pyro to people as long as you're hitting that final part of your normal attack. Moving towards her third constellation here, we have Deep Fry. It increases the level of Pyronado by 3, maximum upgrade level is 15. Just a nice little cherry on top. Everybody has these on their constellations, and allowing you to just deal more damage with your abilities, which is always nice to have. For her fourth constellation here, we have Slow Bake, increasing Pyronado's duration by 40%. And as I mentioned before, Pyronado already has a pretty long duration of 10 seconds, so 40% longer is an additional 4%, quick maths, you know? And so it'll be around for 14 seconds, which is a very long duration for an elemental burst. And part of the reason why Xiangling is so insane is just being able to have her abilities out while you're on your other characters, and this is really adding to that. If you had a 4 constellation Xiangling, then I would say she's probably the top pyro applier in the game. For Xiangling's 5th constellation here, we have Gyoba Mad, the typical +3 to a skill, this one being to Gyoba, nothing too crazy. And for her final constellation, we have Condensed Pyronado. For the duration of Pyronado, all party members receive a 15% pyro damage bonus. And for those of you paying attention, yeah, that obviously stacks with her first constellation here, where it reduces their pyro resistance after being hit by Gyoba by 15%, and then increasing everybody's pyro damage by 15%. This is also another reason that I've been using her in a double pyro party. Just the increased damage to enemies with pyro just starts to really stack with Xiangling. If I had this, I could imagine it would be absolutely insane when paired with somebody like Diluc. And before going into the build portion here, we will of course go over the lore for those of you interested, and you are more than welcome to sit here and pause and read. Now, for the build portion of the video, I'm fairly confident in the way that you should build Xiangling is obviously being a DPS focus. Now, there are a couple nuances to Xiangling that I think you should focus on in that department. I have been lucky enough to go ahead and get something like a couple pieces of the Gladiator set here, and once I get a full Gladiator set for the 4 set bonus, I will be using it, as it does have that increased attack by 18%, and then if the wielder, blah blah blah, polearm increase their normal attack damage by 35%. One thing to note about Xiangling is that her normal attacks are very plentiful, and therefore you should probably be focusing on substats of crit damage and crit rate. Those are really going to help you out in the long run and just make her do that much more damage. But other than that, increasing her attack is probably one of the more important things, but substats of crit rate, crit damage, and elemental mastery are going to be the most beneficial. So that's kind of how you want to build out her artifacts, are that increased attack, crit rate, crit damage, and the elemental mastery. And I highly emphasize elemental mastery being on something like your weapon here. You'll note that I have something called the Dragon's Bane here, a spear that gives me 143 elemental mastery, which is a very nice chunk, and then I do have it refined to rank 2, So this is typically 20% right here. It increases damage against enemies affected by Hydro Pyro by 20%, but since mine's Refinement rank 2, I have 24%, allowing me to be able to just have an abundance of elemental mastery while maintaining my normal and charged attack damage on Xiangling. And why elemental mastery is so important, for those of you who don't know, is the fact that it increases the damage your elemental combos do. So you'll note that for overload in particular, which is what I use the most right here, that I deal an additional 134.1% damage because of the amount of elemental mastery that I have on Xiangling. By default, she has something of around like 100 or something, and then combined with my artifacts and this spear, I'm almost at like 400, just making the damage start to scale in a very big way. That's mostly what I have to say about Xiangling. She's an amazing DPS character, and all of her abilities sticking around while you switch characters is invaluable, and I think she's probably the best pyro status applier in the game right now. And she's also free once you hit AR 20. Getting to that Spyro Abyss floor 3 and completing that will give you her, allowing you access to a pretty broken character in my opinion, and I highly suggest her being on your team. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Leave a like and comment below and subscribe for more, as I will always be doing more content like this. My name's Blossoms, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.